So I have a buddy in the Netherlands named Stefan. He runs a performance coaching company, does about $80,000 a month, or at least that's what I last heard when I spoke to him in the video I'm about to show you. He interviewed me on his YouTube channel to just ask me a lot of questions. But one thing that's actually more important than any of this is we really talk about the specific challenges I faced when I was early on in my business, which is going to be relevant to a lot of you. If you're doing really sub 15 to 20K per month, this is going to be very, very helpful for you because I talk about the exact problems that I had and what I did to solve them. Some of the questions that you guys have asked me in the comments, such as some of the coaching programs I've worked with, this kind of stuff, we do touch a little bit on that. But other stuff that I just haven't talked about, or some different perspectives on things I have talked about as well. So pretty interesting conversation. Definitely check it out.
That's Ivan. The reason I also wanted to interview you because it's very funny to see our growth over the year. I think maybe last year was one of the first times we went on a call and we were both still struggling a bit. We weren't exactly finding our way. And then I think you had a great month. Then I had a great month. And yeah, it's just funny to see the growth we both had as entrepreneurs. And that's why I also wanted to share that with the people watching. What are the things you learned? What are the things that you ran into? And what are the things you can say that can impact others? Before we go into that, I'm curious, what actually moved you to become an entrepreneur? Because I know you've been an entrepreneur for maybe a few years, but what was actually the deciding factor that you said, fuck it, I'm going into entrepreneurship?
Well, that's a good question. In fewer words rather than too many, ever since I was a young kid, I was always like building websites, YouTube channels, online businesses of some kind. It was one of my hobbies. I always hated school because I wanted to do this stuff. And then like one time my mark slipped a little bit, parent teacher interviews come around, teacher's like, okay, well, he should stop doing that. And I was like, dude, what the hell? Like, I just want to do this. But then I went to university and I was bored 5 weeks in. And I was like, well, I used to do that online stuff. There's got to be a way to make 50K a year online. If I can do that, I can just like leave school, right? I looked it up, how to make money online. I found out about drop shipping. This was in 2017. I fell in love instantly. It was over. I was like, there's no way I'm doing the school stuff. And then it was pretty much history from there. I just became obsessed and then I dropped out after my first year.
Yeah. And it's actually, I didn't know you started out with drop shipping. How long did you do that? And when did you actually make the decision to get into marketing?
So I did drop shipping for like a year and a half. I did a ton of different e-com stuff. And then so one thing I learned after that year and a half was that sales was a core skill for entrepreneurship. I'd heard some people saying that. So I was like, okay, I'll apply to sales jobs. I did some door-to-door sales. And I also then I wanted to do phone sales. So I started applying to phone sales jobs. Got a job at a real estate office where they were looking for a guy who did Facebook ads and wanted to book phone appointments. And it was like perfect, right? So I kind of actually ended up doing marketing for like realtors by accident because at first I wanted a sales job. I ended up learning sales and that like started an agency with those guys. Did not work out. Like we made money, but like it was just a terrible deal for me. It's like I was like 10% and they wanted me to do everything. And I was like, well, this is dumb, right? And I was like 50% or nothing. And they were like, no. So then I was off on my own at the start of COVID. So it's been a little over 3 years that I've been on my own now, but that's pretty much the story.
Yeah, exactly. Or what kind of things did you struggle with at the start of your entrepreneurship journey?
One of the big things was self-sabotage altogether. And I don't like the term self-sabotage because it sounds kind of like mystical and weird like that.
Yeah.
But I was totally screwing myself sometimes. Like shiny object syndrome was murdering me. I would do one thing and then I'd switch. It would be working. I'd get up to like 3, 4, 5K in a month and then I'd switch to something else. Why? I have no idea. Because I thought, oh, instead of doing a service, doing DIY like a course is like easier, right? Because you see somebody else making a ton of money doing this thing when you're doing this thing. And then you think, well, that has to be easier. But you don't realize that it took them years to build that, right? Of just sticking at the one thing. So yeah, I found my confidence was low. I found myself constantly screwing myself over. Those are some of the big problems that I solved.
Yeah. And yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with those things. Of course, also the work I do, I see that a lot of times that people, they just get something running and then they have this shiny object of, oh, I need to do this other business or this is paying well. And in the end, it's like, you can be successful in any business you choose. And so, sure, some businesses are easier than others, but you just need to stick to it, right? You need to have. That's what I see now, looking back at it. You need to have like at least 2 years where you learn all the ins and outs. You learn sort of like how sales works, how marketing works, how delivery works, and then at a point which I think we're both at right now, you sort of understand the whole puzzle, and it's all fitting together, and that's when things really start to become fun. But the thing is, whether you do drop shipping, whether you do something else, you need to go through the time. You can't get there like all of a sudden and like, oh, I make, I don't know, 20K in the first month of business. Like it just doesn't happen that way. But yeah, that's important for people to know.
Yeah, and even some people do make, good money in their first month or something. Like Ali, for example, I helped him with his like YouTube ad funnel, and he did 11K in his first month. But then lo and behold, it collapsed the next month, right? And he didn't make anything. And then now he's like getting in like the 5K per month kind of area, which is still pretty quick. But no, I agree 100%. There's a big learning curve. And I think the reason for it is that you're building a stack of skills. And I've talked about this in a video of mine before, but it's really just like if you were just trying to become a good programmer, it would take you a year and you get a couple thousand hours of experience. But if you're trying to become good at marketing and sales and product, it takes you 3 years to get to the same point, right? And so what you can do is you can essentially just work more hours and then get that down to 2 years. And then, yeah, it's still 2 years. Like I was starting out thinking it was going to be fast. Like it takes a long time.
It does. But that's sometimes like the image we get, right? Like that you get really fast to success, and it can happen, like you said. But there are so many things that need to fall into place for it to actually happen. Maybe you do get the 10K month, which I've experienced myself last year. I had a 23K month, and the month after, I completely self-sabotaged myself. I started drinking more, started having more fun, and then the next month I was back at 10K. And if I would have just pushed through, I would probably be cruising at like 20K in the month after it as well. But it's just something in your mind that self-sabotages you. Yeah, it's a funny subject.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's also one of the things I've learned too is that the busier you get, the more sensitive your mind becomes. And people might think like, oh, like, because I've heard before, and it is true that you can totally drink and get hammered and do 100K a month. But the thing is like, you're just making your life harder, like a lot harder for no reason, right? Especially when you're super stressed and your calendar's like packed start to finish every single day. It's like, I'd go out drinking on even a Friday and not on the Saturday, not drink on the Sunday, and on the Monday, like my mind's all messed up and like I'm like my emotions are all over the place. I feel terrible and like just because all the stress is getting to you. So at a certain point, it's definitely true that like that stuff can kill you.
Yeah. But that's what I've saw in myself as well, because I was doing performance coaching, but I didn't have sure, I worked all day, but there wasn't really any pressure. If I look at my days right now, it's morning deep work and my afternoon is fully filled with calls every day. And that's when I really started to see how important it is to have the high performance habits. For example, to prepare your meals in advance, go for a walk, like really take care of yourself. And that's when you notice when you have a bad night of sleep or you go drinking, you just notice it so much. Whereas before, maybe as a starting entrepreneur, it doesn't really matter that much. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, a couple things that I got from you that were really helpful were like the walks, so good. So good. Like I only do like a 15-minute walk, no inputs, like you were saying, no headphones, no nothing. That on its own helps a lot. And just, one thing I kind of got from Sam Ovens is reducing the amount of decisions you have to make in a day. Like it's kind of funny. Like I get roasted by like my girlfriend for this, but on my dresser, I'll put these little sticky notes for like what days of the week I wear what shirts and like what the condition is for like what the temperature needs to be for me to wear pants kind of thing. Or like I just write like if it's cold, wear pants so that there's no thinking. It's like, is it cold? Okay, I'm wearing pants. Instead of having to use even just these little micro amounts of like your decision making power. Because and even Jeff Bezos will say like if you can just make 1 to 3 good decisions a day, that will compound like crazy. Right?
Yeah, because the stage, for example, where you're at right now, like you said, hey, I have a sales guy hiring someone for delivery. It's like your decisions have so much leverage that if you make a bad decision, like it trickles down into everything that you do. And if you make a good decision, and yeah, it makes everything better. And that's the case with Jeff Bezos, right? Like if you have such a large company, and just making one big good decision will completely change the whole company.
100%.
What are some other ways you have reduced the amount of decisions you make in a day?
Good question, actually. So I use my Google Calendar like crazy. Like it looks psychotic. But what I do is when there are any tasks that I do on a repeated basis, for one, what I'll do is like I will track every single thing I do every minute of every day. Like did I loaf and go on my phone? Did I go to the washroom? Did I take a walk and eat lunch? Did I call people for this amount of time? Did I reply to emails? Whatever. And then what you can do is look back at your calendar and basically just see like, okay, well, throughout these hours or on a weekly basis, generally speaking, I spend X amount of time doing this, this, and this. So one thing you can do is delegate. Another thing you can do is set up repeating calendar event time blocks. So there's no question of when to do it or anything. It's just there and you just go, okay, this is what I'm doing. Another thing is at the end of every day, I'll plan the next day. So when you wake up, you don't have to just like be like, oh, what am I doing today? And then you're just part of your decision-making power goes into planning your day. When planning your day isn't like it is important, but it isn't that important. Where if you have also mental models. So if you think about like, if you can consider, is a task a priority or not, right? Then you can go, okay, well, if it's not, just don't do it or put it on the back burner in some random list to look at sometime in the future. But if it is a priority, where is it on the list? And then you can organize based on that. Or some people do like the deep work thing. For me, that's my evening time. Some people do it in the morning, or most people do. When you isolate things like that, it's a big part of what I'm trying to say is your time management and your day scheduling and planning, so that if you reduce the amount of things that you have to think about, plan, whatever, there's just same thing with your diet. I eat the same thing for lunch every day. There's no question of what should I do? Should I go on a walk? Should I not? It's like, well, the only time I won't go on a walk is if it's raining.
Yeah.
Any other time I'm going on a walk, even if it's freezing.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, but it's so important. It's also what we do with clients at Pickup is exactly this. Like your decision power, your time is so valuable. You shouldn't spend your time on $10 tasks. So for example, cleaning your house or doing groceries or like cooking food all the time, thinking about what you're going to eat. It takes so much mental capacity that you can't use in your business. And what most people don't understand is that maybe they say, yeah, but I don't want to work more on my business. Then you could spend the time in active recovery, maybe go to the sauna, maybe you could do something fun with your girlfriend. But now you're stuck at home cleaning your house, right? And maybe you find it fun, but I think maybe 1 in 20 people find it fun, but most people don't. Yeah, it's crazy, man. One thing I want to ask you, what's been your biggest highlight as an entrepreneur?
I guess, honestly, at this point, it would be getting my first sales guys in. Like my business is pretty much on auto. I'm able to work on it, right? But on it only. Like there's no, I'll talk to the odd customer here and there and like make sure everything's okay. But it's mostly, I'm just managing people. So I'm actually down to the point where if I want to, or I'm not quite there yet, but I mean, I only really have to work on the business at this point for like 5 to 10, like 10 hours a week right now. Aside from that, There's not really much else to do, but I'm still using my free time to keep building the business so that it can building assets within it to give it more value, to help increase booking rates via email sequences and this kind of thing. But I would say that's definitely the number one, because one of my biggest dreams has been to build and automate a business, and I've just about done it.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's what I wanted to ask you. What is your vision now for the future?
Yeah, so I love this. I get so excited over this. My like big, crazy long-term goal is to build a 9-figure company in software. So right now, the idea,
Alex Becker style.
yeah, exactly. I've watched that guy for like years, but I guess like the idea is cash flow now via the agency as well as potentially via the coaching. Like I still don't really know if I'm going to go all in on it or not, because I'm talking with my coach right now on that. Keep getting coaching nonstop, because the amount it pays back is unreal.
Huh.
And then cash flow so that I can build a software company and just try to go Alex Becker mode.
Amazing, man. That's so good to hear. And for the people that are listening to this and they don't know who Alex Becker is, just go check out his YouTube channel. He has amazing videos. He sold his company Hyros, I think only partially, while the majority of the shares for over 110 million in, I think, only 4 years, 4 or 5 years that he's actually building. So yeah, that's an amazing entrepreneur to look at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have your business right now, right? What next to business or maybe in business are interests that you're cultivating right now? Maybe books you're reading, podcasts you're listening to, coaches that you have.
What my intent is to work with different coaches for pretty extended periods of time, 6 months, something like that, to absorb like as much of their brain as possible and install it into mine. So he's a big thing right now. I've actually never really read a lot of books. I've like half read probably 15 books. I've read in full probably like, honestly, 6 or 7. It mostly used to be YouTube videos, but one thing I eventually learned was that YouTube videos eventually started to give me too much noise, because everybody's trying to, they're teaching you things, but they're also programming you to make sure that you submit to their marketing and buy from them at the same time. So everybody says something different. Somebody will run an ad, Instagram outreach sucks. Another guy runs an ad, Instagram outreach is the best thing ever. It's like, who do you trust? How do you know? And you get pulled in all these different directions. So I actually stopped watching a lot of YouTube content. Like I'll watch Alex Hormozi. Not even all of his videos, because he's gone super broad and a lot of them aren't relevant to me anymore. But his old stuff, golden. So golden, because it's more niche. I recently read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the creator of Nike.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good book. It's more of a story, but there's still some pretty significant lessons in there. Honestly, man, it's mostly just like coaching and doing the work, because one thing I've learned as well is that you can make it incredibly far with your intuition, and that a lot of people just don't have the confidence in their own decision-making skills. So when you work with a coach and you say, hey, I was thinking this, and they just say, yeah, then you're like, oh, I was right. And then that happens enough times in a row and you're like, how much do I really need this guy?
Yeah.
You know, or like, that's kind of what happened to me with my first coach. But then you move on to the next person and, you know, take different skill sets in. So that's kind of my
I really agree with that as well, especially the YouTube part. For example, also, if you look at my YouTube channel and your YouTube channel, those are just separate videos. And if you want to get a taste of how we think, then it's very valuable to watch the videos. But if you want to do stuff like we do, then it's better to do it in a structured manner, where that's, for example, a course or a coaching, where you just have all the steps laid out. This is what you need to do. That's what I found as well, is you can watch thousands of YouTube videos, or you just have one course that explains it step by step. And recently or like 2-3 months ago, I bought a blood test mastery course. So it's basically a course about how you can analyze blood tests in the best way what kind of supplements that you need to take in order to, for example, optimize testosterone, what kind of lifestyle things you need to do. This is literally knowledge of a guy who's been doing this for 10 years or more, and he's all distilled it into one program I can listen to. And then I could go to YouTube and I could find, hey, how do I optimize testosterone? Then person A would say this, person B would say that. And now I just have it all laid out for me. And it's insane, like the value of courses versus just scrolling through YouTube and just clicking stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And like one thing I just wrote in my notes, excuse me, my notes here is learning from one source at a time.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, like when you think about it logically, you can understand why watching like 15 different YouTube channels actually does a lot of harm, although it also does a lot of good. It's like going to like 3 different universities at once and then just taking parts of different of their courses and trying to piece it together, right? Like imagine trying to learn Python, like introductory, while trying to learn JavaScript, like year 3, week 17, or like whatever, or like week 13. And like you're watching this video and then this video and then a snippet from that one at that school. And it's like, you don't really know what to do. So if you learn from one source, it consolidates everything and gives you a map, a roadmap instead of a thing. And one thing I want to add in here, as like not you, the one who's running this interview, is a lot of people, what I thought that people who sold any type of program or anything were saying this because they want you to buy their thing. And I thought that was part of that, like programming, right? But then I realized that was actually like completely true and honest. Like investing in courses and coaching I got burned once and it scared me for a year and a half. Then I bought into Reality Mastery. I met you, I met Ali. I changed a ton of stuff in my business. Then I went into one of Sam Evans's programs. Then I worked with another coach, now another coach. And like every single one of them, except for that first one, I still learned some valuable lessons by getting burned.
Yeah.
But just the payout is unreal. If I wouldn't be nowhere near as far as I am right now if I was trying to figure it out alone.
For me, it's the exact same thing. The first interview, the podcast with Yaya, my one-on-one coach, if I didn't have him, I wouldn't be having this. Maybe I would have been doing this interview, but he's taught me so many things about life in general, about business, about how to view things. You can't get that just from a YouTube video. And yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. The thing is exactly what you're saying. You do have to do your research. So if you're looking for a coach, find out, hey, is this guy walking his talk? Is he actually is he solving the problem I want to have solved? Because, for example, if I look back at one of the first coaches I invested in, he taught me a lot, but at that moment, I needed a business coach. I needed someone just to tell me like, hey, this is the strategy you need to follow. This is how you get clients. This is how you do all of that stuff. And it was more a mindset coach, which was helpful, like in the end, but I needed a business coach more at that moment. So also ask yourself, what do I need at this moment? What am I struggling with the most that is preventing my growth? Find something for it. And I think Hormozy has a great quote for this. Like you either pay with time or you pay with your money. And it's your decision what you need to do.
So true. And one of the things that I thought was amazing from Quasi's program was it helped me treat money as a tool instead of treat money as this like sacred thing. Because now I just pound money into my businesses. And they're all like well thought out investments, but I'll be very aggressive because I know that it'll just take a little bit of time, but way more is coming back, way more. And that's the thing with like a software company too. They cost millions to start.
Yeah.
But so the idea is get a cash flow business, be able to fund that thing, but then the business becomes the product. Then you sell that at a later date for, again, like crazy amounts more, right? And you pay for consultants in the meantime, for acquisitions, for growing a software business, whatever it is. And like, it pays back. There's a concept that I've been talking about recently with one of my clients, which is what I call, for lack of a better term, reverse debt. And basically what you're doing is you're putting time in or effort in or money in now, and you're essentially in a way crediting the world because you're giving a bunch of value in the form of optimizing your business or doing whatever it is that you're doing to help more people and reach more people to help, you just don't get paid for months or years. And if you can wrap your head around that, accept it, and lean into it, like the compounding becomes insane. Like you look at Mr. Beast and Alex Hormozi, two great examples alongside tons of other people. But Mr. Beast reinvests just about every single penny. Alex Hormozi, one of the things he preaches is when you're starting out, like pay down that like ignorance debt with buying courses, buying coaching, whatever. And he was like, I was broke until I had $1 million in my bank account. And it just happened like that because he just kept on reinvesting and reinvesting. Now, sure, he went broke and this and that happened, but like that's the whole thing.
You don't take away the skills, because that's, I think, for both of us, like even if there would be a big recession, and
skills are recession proof.
Yeah, exactly. Because how you do sales, how you do marketing, how you lead a team, it's always going to be valuable. It's not like it's not that one business. Same with Alex Hormozi, right? Like even if it would lose everything in this world, you would probably have $1 million in a week, because he's just so valuable to people. Yeah, that's insane. I want to start wrapping up this interview. One last question I have, which I ask all of my guests on the podcast. Who has been your biggest mentor in life? And what is one actionable thing that you learned from him or her that you can share with the audience?
I would say mentor in life would be my dad. In business, it would probably be Becker. But in life, to answer your question, it'd be my dad. And I think the biggest thing would be good with your money. If you like, it's such a like general thing, but it's like the biggest takeaway. Like if you can manage your money, then you can find ways to get real creative to make it grow and not lose it. Like, yeah, like work with, if you give yourself constraints to a certain degree, then you force creativity also. So, but bottom line, like I reinvest heavily into my business, and I still like always keep a fair chunk of cash on hand. Like I want to make sure that I have like an emergency fund, so on and so forth, for the sake of comfort and reducing stress levels, but also just because like just security, and it makes sense. And you know, you want to allow yourself to make mistakes, but not detrimental ones, not ones that are going to kill you, right? Exactly. So be good with your money.
Exactly. It's one of the things I learned from one of my good friends as well. He coaches people on financial mindset, and he says you need to have at least 6 months saved up in the bank, preferably a year, because anything can happen, and then you can just have the time to reinvent yourself. Or maybe you have one big client that's paying all of your debt or all of the things that you do. Then if that person leaves or he is trying to put you into a bad position, you can just say, yeah, I have a year worth of savings. I really don't care if you move away, because I can just find a new client in that year. And it gives so much power. Like it's such an underrated thing, which would help entrepreneurs a lot. And of course, at the start, it's a bit different, because then you need to invest and you need to pay off that ignorance debt. But in the end, it's a very good thing to have. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.